Good afternoon. I'm Bill Anderson. I'm going live from Mi Casa on the Costa del Sol. It's been a very rainy week down here this week, but I think the sun is trying to come out just now. But we were just on the point of having a state of drought announced, so that the rain was really very welcome. I okay. I I've just got a message on the screen from my guest today. I can hear her okay, but she said her sound is gone from her end, so that's not very good. Okay, I think we're back. Can you hear me, Noelle?
I can hear you now, yes.
Right, and we can hear you. That's great. There's a bit of background noise going on there, but I'm not sure what that is. I've got a bit of echo, I think. Noelle Fanning, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Bill.
We are going to be talking with you about your business, um,
Okay.
which you know. Can I ask? Do you have anything else on there, or like radio going on the background? No.
No, nothing at all. Just going to check now. Everything else is off.
Right. That sounds better.
Just checking. No, nothing at all.
That's sounding better, I
How's
think.
that?
Thank you. Yeah, great. We're going to be talking about the business that you and your partner Mark have, which is
I
cater.
can't hear now.
You can't hear me now, right? How about now?
I can hear you very faintly.
Very okay. I'll speak loud.
That's okay. Just about.
Okay, now you have a company which provides catering for the film and TV industry, and we're going to be talking about that. But
Yeah.
I want to ask firstly about something a little bit about you.
Okay.
You weren't born in the UK, were you?
No, I was born in southern Sudan, but it was called Sudan at the time of my birth.
Right,
There's been a war since and a division of the country,
right.
which is the reason why I left.
Okay. And how did your parents happen to be in Sudan?
Well, what happened was my dad was working for the British Council and he was working in Ethiopia, and my mum was working with Irish volunteers in Uganda at the time of Idi Amin, and they were both airlifted out to London, and they actually met at it sounds a bit morbid really, but at an event for people that had been airlifted out of war zones in
Right.
London, and they decided that they wanted to go back to Africa. And at the time, Sudan was a peaceful country. So that's where they decided to go back together, get married, and start their family. But
Ah,
obviously, it didn't stay peaceful for so long.
yeah. So when you left Sudan, where did you head to after that?
Well, my dad had this idea that he wanted to live by the sea. So they actually bought a house in Bognor Regis.
All right, okay.
So we went from sunny Sudan to sunny Bognor Regis, and we didn't last very long there because I think they realised quite quickly that actually it was miserable and rainy there.
Right.
And so my dad then decided to do further studies in Reading, and that's when we decided to move to Reading. And my dad still lives there.
Right, okay. So how did you go from Reading to the Costa del Sol, or did you go via various places, or how did you end up down here, Noel?
Well, um, I had it in my head when I was at school that I wanted to live in France.
Right.
And that was what I decided was going to be my goal. And I met my partner um, after spending some time with me in some French speaking countries. He didn't want to move to France. Um, and then announced to me one day that he was going to go and move to the Costa del Sol and I could come or I could stay in England. So I let him go to the Costa del Sol and I came to visit a few times. I've never been to Spain. And I thought, do you know what? Maybe I like this place more than I like France. And
Right.
so I decided to stay.
Yeah, but when you got rainy England or sunny Costa del Sol, I mean, it's a hard choice, isn't it?
Well, I think I don't really know what I thought Spain was all about, having never been there before. I think I thought it was full of kiss me quick hats and Union Jack boxer shorts, but actually I realised that southern Spain had so much to offer. We did actually do a tour all over Spain, deciding where we wanted to live finally, and we went all over the Costa Blanca. We went to Alicante, and I just felt, being in my early 20s, that the infrastructure for someone that at the time didn't speak Spanish,
Right.
not only was it the sunniest place to be in Europe, but also it was the easiest place to be able to get a job, make friends, fit in. And so that's why we decided to choose Marbella, um, and settle there.
Yeah. So how long have you been down here? When did you actually move permanently down here?
Well, I've been here now nearly 20 years, or
Right.
possibly actually 20 years, maybe 20 years to the day, actually, because I
R
think it was March 2002 when I first came here.
right.
So
Okay. So it's a kind of happy anniversary time then, Noel.
I suppose actually, Bill, talking to you now has made me realise how long I've been here. And absolutely, I think this was probably the week that I did first arrive in Spain,
Right.
off the plane from England, wondering what on earth I was going to do.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
But
happy anniversary to me.
but yeah, you've been here a long time, but you have it because of the type of business that you went into, and we're going to talk about that. But you speak fluent Spanish, don't you?
I do now. Yeah, I
Yeah.
do. And actually, that was luck. That was something that I realised I had to do after I'd been here a few years, and I realised that I wanted to stay.
Right.
And luckily, because I had learned French, I did find learning Spanish a lot easier than if I hadn't had that background.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because my wife is Spanish. She's bilingual, Spanish and English, but she says that she understands a lot of French. She doesn't speak a lot, but when people are
Yeah,
speaking in French, she picks up maybe 50% of what's going on from her Spanish roots.
yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a Latin language. Um, the 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 logic and the grammar is the same, I found. So I was kind of sitting in the Spanish class and I understood straight away about masculine and feminine, and I knew about how to form the past tense and the verbs and all the boring things about learning a language. So that definitely gave me a leg up. And then I just got thrown in the deep end on a Spanish film set one day and realized that if I didn't speak Spanish, they were going to throw me off the Spanish film set quite quickly.
Yeah, yeah. So, but with yourself and Mark, has your business always been in the catering world?
Um, I mean, I actually worked very, very briefly for a developer when I first came here.
Right,
And after that, I decided that I wanted to have a cafe, not a catering business. I had worked in catering in the UK.
right.
Um, and naturally, I think because I did have that background, it moved very quickly into catering. But my first idea here was that I wanted to make fresh sandwiches and sell them in shops. But at the time, I didn't really understand about what was involved in that. And I did spend a lot of time working on that project. And I realized that, A, Spanish people don't really eat sandwiches. Um, B, there was a lot of work to be done with regards to shelf lives and allergen testings and calories, and very, very quickly the catering took off, and so I decided to focus more on that side of the business.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? You wouldn't think that making sandwiches would become such a complicated thing, would you?
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. And I did so much research and I learned so much. And I realized that the Spanish retailers at the time wanted a 14-day shelf life on a sandwich, and I just couldn't work out how to give a sandwich a 14-day shelf life. So I literally shelved that idea quite quickly.
Have you since learned how that might work? I mean,
I
14
think
days on a sandwich sounds like an
Well,
awful lot.
I think the sandwiches are pumped full of gas, which is why they look quite unappetizing.
Right.
Whereas when you go to other places where sandwiches tend to just be completely fresh on the shelf every single day.
Sure. Sure. And you know, we will talk a little bit about the sort of the technical part of the business that
Yeah,
you're in, and the catering business. But has it got more complicated? You've been here 20 years. You've been doing this for a
yeah.
long time now. Has it got more complicated over the years, or yeah, well, it's not going to get simpler,
Yeah,
is it?
I think, well, first of all, going into something completely blind, which I did in my early 20s, has it got more complicated? I think I'm definitely more aware of legislation, but certainly things have been more complicated since 2014 when the 14 allergens ruling came in from the European Union.
Right.
And all of a sudden, everybody had to become aware of food labeling, whether you're in a restaurant or whether you're making food off site, and knowledge of ingredients to make sure that these allergens were highlighted. And certainly over the last kind of 6 or 7 years, then the food traceability legislation that has come in Spain in particular has been extremely complicated to
Hmm.
follow. But it's all part and parcel of the business, and you just have to find ways to incorporate that into the business. So that's what we're doing on a constant basis
Yeah,
now.
when we were chatting the other day, though, and I think it was Mark was talking about this. It just sounded like a nightmare, Noel.
Yeah,
It sounded like a nightmare. Even you can't just say there's mayonnaise in it. It's which brand
no,
of mayonnaise and what ingredients are in this brand of
that's right.
mayonnaise, and you know, I guess if you're out and about and you couldn't get the one you normally use and you use another one, all of a sudden the paperwork goes
Yeah,
sky high again, doesn't it?
yeah, it does. It absolutely does. And we're constantly checking for these 14 allergens. We worked in Italy back in I think 2016, 2017. And of course, having to read every single food label all over again in Italian
Right,
was a challenge. And realizing that actually Spain is pretty well set up when it comes to food labeling and food allergens. I mean, when we went to Italy, absolutely everything had traces of nuts in it and traces of dairy, for example.
yeah,
So we had to learn pretty quickly about how we could certainly um, make our crew aware that they had to do this, and we were, Google Translate on the phones, reading all the different words, and yeah, it's something that we have to do everywhere we go now. When wherever we're using new ingredients, is just check the paperwork, check the food labeling, and make sure that our crew are aware of what's going in everything. So
yeah,
sounds pretty boring, but food allergies, there's been some terrible stories in the news about
sure,
people that have had adverse reactions to different ingredients. So it's something that possibly wasn't in the forefront before the allergens law changes, and now people are definitely a lot more aware. And some people say, "Oh, you know what? In my day, people didn't have these allergens." But I think what it is that there have been changes to people's diets, and people do seem to have more food intolerances and food allergens. And unfortunately, what a lot of people don't realize is that it can make certain people extremely ill. It can even kill them. So we
right.
do have to take all this into consideration with everything that we do these days.
So, do you think that this is about people's habits or the way that a lot of foods are produced these days? That perhaps 50 years ago we didn't have the kind of mixture of ingredients and allergens creeping into the food.
Yeah, I mean, what I do know is I noticed when we were working with people from the UK, there was a lot of nut allergies. People from the always nut allergies coming through, and actually, it was something that with the Spanish um, clients, we didn't seem to get so many nut allergies filtering through. And I did watch a TV program, a UK TV program, saying, why are there so many people with nut allergies in the UK? And there was a lot of research conducted, and actually, the findings of the research was that there'd been advice given to pregnant women 15, 20 years ago, saying in pregnancy, avoid nuts, nut products. Children weren't given peanut butter like they were, and they found a direct correlation between that advice and the steep rise in people with nut allergies. So
Right.
yeah, I think that definitely that's got something to do with the rise in these allergies and intolerances. And I think also it's just possibly people becoming more aware that that the reason why they feel a certain way or they have a certain reaction is because of the foods that they're eating. I'd say
Yeah.
that's a definite.
Now, the business that you have, the catering business you have,
Yeah.
what's it called? Tell us what it's called.
It's called Deli Fresh Go Catering.
Yeah.
Um,
And
I wanted to call it Deli Fresco in Spanish,
right.
but someone else already had that
Right. Okay.
name. So
So
I decided
you
we decided to use Go in English because we were doing food on the go.
right. So you're based here on in Mijas Costa.
That's
Um,
correct.
I know the answer to this, but you can tell us. Do you only operate here on the Costa?
No, we don't. We operate all over Spain. We've actually got jobs going on at the moment in Tenerife. We're just about to go to Mallorca. We worked in Germany last year, Madrid, the Canary Islands, Cadiz. We've got quotes going on at the moment, but all over Spain and for a couple of European jobs as well.
Right.
Um, so for us, we're definitely European. I have worked in Morocco before. I worked on a quite a famous movie in Morocco.
Right.
Um, so we'll kind of go wherever people want to take us, really.
Right. Okay. So, we were talking about the kind of food regulations,
Yeah.
Noel. Um, how does that work? If I don't know, if you're doing a job in Berlin, do you have to then meet all the German regulations, or if you go to Morocco, meet all the Moroccan regulations? How does that actually work in practice?
Right. Well, the thing about the European Union is all the rules are the same.
Okay.
So we can go anywhere in Europe. We actually have had to register with the European Central Food Handlers Register. Um, and we work to that legislation wherever we are in Spain or in Portugal or in Germany. We are inspected in Spain.
Right.
For every job that we do, we have to present the paperwork now to Sanidad. But we could also be inspected in Germany or in any other European country by the local food inspectors. And so that's why we have to make sure that we're aware of any local laws that there are and also comply with them. We have worked in the UK before as well, and we had to declare our activity in the UK to the local department of the town hall. And again, we had to work to the Spanish regs and the UK regs. And
Right.
sometimes there is a crossover, and we just have to make sure that we've got pretty much all the bases covered. The first thing is we have to make sure anywhere we go, we need clean water. We need to know what's in
Right.
our ingredients, and we need to have proper refrigeration, and we have to make sure that our food is heated to the right temperature. So those guidelines are pretty universal, but we do
Hmm.
have to make sure that our team are all aware of it. So yeah, it's a constant process
Right.
to keep up with it all.
So what you're doing primarily, I'm sure there are other bits to the business, but you're providing on location catering for very often for the TV and film industry, aren't you?
Yes, that's correct. Um, for the last couple of years, it has been primarily for the TV and film industry because large events have obviously been stopped
Right,
and not taking place because of COVID. But pre-pandemic, certainly, we were also catering for crews that were setting up live shows in arenas or live TV, music festivals. We just did a big e-gaming job. We've done UFC before. Um, so it's kind of feeding
the masses.
workers, workers as well as actors and actresses and artists.
Yeah, is it a very competitive business, Noel? Are there a lot of companies out there providing this kind of service?
I would say that in our world, yes, it's competitive. We've always got competition, but very often our competition could be in a different part of Spain, could be in a different country. I mean, for example, the job that we did in Germany, it was
Hmm.
such a big job that there were three caterers involved. There was us from southern Spain, there was a Berlin caterer, and then there was a caterer from the UK as well.
Right,
And the client, big American client, had chosen the three caterers with very, very specific requests in place. So
right,
yeah, we do quite often come up against other Spanish companies, but more often than not, we could be up against a British company, a German company, an Italian company. So yeah, it's they're always out there. Put it like that.
yeah, yeah. Okay, Noel, we're going to take a short ad break just now, and when we
Okay.
come back, but we're going to talk a bit about some of the experiences that you've had actually out on location. Well,
Okay.
the ones you can tell us about, at least, yeah?
Yeah, for sure.
Dave, it's over to you.
Okay.
Welcome back. I'm Bill Anderson. I'm coming live from the Costa del Sol, from Mijas, with my guest today, Noelle Fanning, who is talking to us about catering for, particularly for the film and TV industry. Um, how are things working now, Noelle? Better with sound? You can hear me okay?
Much better. I can hear you. Can you hear
I
me?
can hear you
Great.
absolutely clearly. That's wonderful. Thank
Good.
you. Noelle, it sounds a very, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, exotic kind of job, being on TV sets, being on film sets, and providing the catering. I guess for the crew and also for the actors
Yeah.
and whatever. It sounds awfully romantic and exotic. Is that the reality?
Um, if you are somebody who thrives under pressure and loves to go to new places, then yeah, I would say it is exotic and possibly romantic. But if you don't like getting out of bed early and you don't like working long days and you don't like dust and you can't be away for for long or short periods of time, then no, it's not romantic. So
No, no, and actually, it doesn't matter what kind of catering you're doing. Whether you're at a restaurant or a cafe or doing what you're doing, catering is hard work, isn't it?
it's hard work, yeah. You got to think evenings, weekends, bank holidays, Christmas, that's when you're expected to be working when everyone else is out having fun.
Yeah, and I guess when you're looking at, well, let's take a sort of film type set first of all, rather than TV. Um, I guess you're working with people from a lot of nationalities as well, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, you can certainly, especially in Spain, because Spain is a hugely popular filming location. So you could be working with people from, yeah, from anywhere in the world, really.
Yeah. And how does that impact on catering? Because people coming from different places have different tastes and preferences, and how do you guys work around that sort of thing?
Well, the first thing that we do is we always find out where the crew are from, and we tailor the menus to suit that. So, for example, if we're working with a Spanish crew, we have to make sure that we've got a mid-morning sandwich for them,
Yeah,
bocadillo break. Um, if we've got British crew, then generally they like to have some kind of English breakfast.
right.
Um, when you're working with an Italian crew, they like to have pasta as a starter and lots of bread and cake for breakfast.
Really?
Um, yeah, really. French crew drink a lot of tea, believe it or not. Um, yeah, and then sometimes if you work on a Bollywood movie, then you have to do Indian food, and obviously deal with or try and deal with all of the different areas of India and all the different things that they require as well.
Wow.
So you definitely need to be creative and understanding of the cultural differences
Yeah.
between all the different countries.
So have you done Bollywood movies?
We put it this way, we are about to start a Bollywood movie. So
Uh-huh. So that's going to be a real challenge, isn't it?
It's going to be, yeah, and actually, yeah, we've got to do a mixture of food because quite often the Bollywood actors bring their own chefs with them from India, but this
Right.
time it's not possible. So we're having to quote for, or not quote, we've basically discussed providing Spanish food and Indian food because the Spanish crew they struggle to eat spices during the day. So
Yeah, it's actually I was we're out with some friends well at a birthday party just recently, and we were talking about this. They're Italian. We had Spanish people there and some Brits and Dutch, and it was a bit like the United Nations. And
yeah,
we were talking about this, and even our concept of what is spicy
yeah,
varies from country to country, doesn't it?
it does hugely. And just the culture of eating spicy food during the day is something that certainly the Spanish don't really do at
Yeah.
all. And Italians, yeah, Portuguese a little bit different, but yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah, but my wife and I actually, before we were married, we were staying with some Indian friends in London for a couple of days, and they had their own chef in the house,
Yeah,
um, and I mean we love Indian food and we love it spicy, and we were eating just about spicy for breakfast, spicy for lunch, and spicy for
yeah,
dinner, and that was great. But what a Spanish person will say, "Oh, this is really spicy." I taste it
yeah.
and think, I can't taste anything
No,
spicy here at all.
exactly. It's one of the first things the Spanish crew will ask us when they're trying, is it spicy? Is that spicy? Is that spicy?
Yeah,
Eso pica mucho. And like, we have to make sure that, yeah, we can't put any spice in certain things. We actually put spices on the side or chili sauce on the side so that
right.
I worked actually with Clint Eastwood once.
Really?
And I remember there was three caterers on the job. And I remember we had to help out one of the caterers. And I remember the lunch or the food was chili con carne. And I was like, I said, wow, this is the most unchilly chili I've ever tasted. And Clint came up to me at the end and he was like, you were right. That was definitely an unchilly
And
chili.
then chili.
I told you.
Yeah, I mean, you can buy things like the chorizo is a typical Spanish sausage, and they call it chorizo
Yeah,
picante, which is spicy. And
yeah.
and I would say 11 times out of 10, it's not.
Yeah, I would, and Padron peppers that are supposed to be
I
spicy. I don't think
know.
I've ever had a spicy Padron pepper.
I don't think so either. Yeah, for people who are
No,
listening, Padron peppers, they're green, and they look like just sort of miniature green peppers, like the long green peppers. And they call them semi-picante usually. And I've never tasted anything spicy about these
no, I've never
ever,
had a spicy.
ever.
People say, oh, if you taste them, 1 in 10 are going to be spicy, and I think, well, I've had hundreds, and I've never had the
You've never
spicy
had
one.
a spicy one. So
No,
you worked with Clint Eastwood. That must have been.
yeah,
I mean, from a personal perspective, I mean, Clint Eastwood is just a legend, isn't he?
a total legend. Yeah, I mean, when I found out I was going to work with him, I couldn't believe it. Um, but one thing you cannot do, film set etiquette is you can't ask for pictures. You
No.
can't say you're a fan. You can't post things on social media. And right at the end of the job, he said, right, these are the people I'm going to have pictures with. And he said, catering, I want a picture with you guys. And we were like, oh my God, he's actually saying he wants a picture with us.
Yeah.
Because he knew that people were going to ask him for pictures, but that we're not supposed to. So I've got my Clint Eastwood picture. But that's
Wonderful.
actually one of the only ones. It's one thing I always say to newbies. I'm like, whatever you do, don't ask for a picture. Um,
Sure. Sure.
so yeah, but he was an absolute pleasure to work with on all fronts, a real professional. And I mean, he was in his 80s when I worked with him, in his early 80s. And still his whole crew were all in their 70s.
Really.
And they'd all worked with him for 20 years. And yeah, it was the best experience I think I've ever had.
Yeah.
working on a job, working with him.
Yeah, and you know, I had a guest on 2 3 weeks ago who's done some of these huge events
Yeah,
in the UK for music, not catering,
yeah,
and he was saying that even I think one of them was at Elton John's birthday party, his 50th birthday, and they had to be so careful. He wasn't even allowed to play music from anybody who was there, so he was walking around looking to see who was there and hoping he wasn't going to make a big faux pas.
yeah,
But
yeah,
when you are
yeah.
working
Well,
with these people, you've got to be careful, haven't you?
you have to be really careful, and you know, you can't just go posting where they are or what they're doing. I mean, I've done jobs before where we've had to walk through the paparazzi to get to work, and
Right.
we've had a warning in the morning saying, look, the paps are going to be there, you know, please, no one, like, everyone turn their badges round, like, you know, don't say anything, just be prepared for it. I've done jobs where you've got the public, like crowds of people watching, and it's just part of the job, really, and you just have to deal with it.
Yeah, yeah, but it must be tempting. It must be tempting. Well, it would be for me, you know, to have someone like Clint Eastwood sort of wandering around and desperate to take a photo, sort of in the
Yeah,
flesh, you know.
I know. I think though, after a while, it just becomes you just don't do it. But also, I will be honest, working with all these different nationalities, sometimes you'll meet someone and you have no idea who they are, and they're like a huge star in Sweden or
Right.
really famous in Holland, and you're thinking, I don't even know who this person is.
Uh-huh.
We actually did a job years ago now with, it was a low budget British movie. I think it was probably a gangster movie. And right at the end, all the Spanish were asking for a photo with one of the cast members. And we didn't get it. Like, how do they know this cast member? And it turns out the cast member, I think, was on Game of Thrones or Doctor House or one of these kind of
All
UK
right.
international, and they knew this character from that. And so they all wanted a picture. And we were just like, have all the cast, that one? And then when they were like, I think it was Doctor House, the more I think about it. And it was like, Doctor House, Doctor House. And yeah. So yeah, there are other times when, I mean, we did one job where Mark thought somebody was, I don't know, a runner, and they turned out to be one of the main stars in the cast. That happens quite a lot.
Right.
So yeah, you know, you don't always know who the people are.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you're not careful, you can get yourself into a bit of bother. So that's why it's best just to treat everybody the same.
Yeah, I know, well, not from you specifically, but from a mutual friend that you did catering for Game of Thrones here in Spain, didn't you?
I was involved. Yeah, there was actually two or three caterers there. So
Right.
we were there looking after like all the snacks for them, the teas and the coffees, and helping out with the service. Yeah, it was quite a good experience as well. Of course, Spain is where most of Game of Thrones that's not filmed in Dublin is filmed, and it's got a huge following here. So just being part of it was a great experience.
And was that done in Seville?
That was in Seville. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was in Seville. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. But this is a different thing again, because I presume you had seen some of the episodes of the early Game of Thrones before you did the catering for it, so you're kind of recognizing people and
Yeah, definitely recognizing people. But I'll be honest, I didn't watch a lot of Game of Thrones, so I was a little bit kind of not sure about some of the people. But
right.
yeah, of course, with them all being there, and seeing the reaction from just going into work and seeing the reaction from the public and stuff like that was, yeah, that was very, that was big. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, the people that you mean, I'm thinking about the actors. You know,
Yeah.
do you have just sort of, I don't know, very casual interaction when they're coming for a cup of tea, or do they chat?
Yeah. Yeah, and actually, sometimes, I mean, we did a job with George Clooney. I can
Uh-huh.
tell you that George Clooney does like a cup of tea,
Oh, does
actually.
he?
Yeah, he does like a cup of tea. Yeah, you get people coming in all the time, coming up. Sometimes if you're working with method actors, they won't come. Some people will send an assistant, but a lot of the time, you know, they're working, jobbing actors as well. They're part of the crew. So you know, it's quite normal for them to come up and get their food and their drinks and stuff like that. So yeah, quite often you do.
Yeah, and come on, trade secret here. Is there an after filming party where they all get together and you get to join in with them?
Yeah, I mean, do you know what though? Since COVID, that was one of the first things to go. But yeah,
Right.
there will be a wrap party somewhere, and everyone will be there, and everyone's going, "Oh, I didn't recognise you when you're not dressed in your apron and your hat.
Yeah.
You're not covered in dust."
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, everyone comes up, and generally people are very. They say, and what we love doing when we finish a job is having the crew thank us for going the extra mile and thank the chefs. And
Yeah.
we actually did a job with Davina McCall, and she actually sent a video message to the chef thanking the chef personally for the food, which was a really, really lovely touch because
Yeah.
we didn't have a wrap party, we had COVID, we couldn't all be mixing, and the fact that she did that was lovely actually.
Yeah. And you're in catering, Noelle. You're bound to get some awkward characters when it comes to the food and the way they want it and what they don't want and what they. And I'm not even thinking about allergies here. You know, you must have some awkward people.
Do you know what? I'll be honest, on a film set, you get people with allergies and intolerances, which is one thing, but generally people are pretty good because they're working and they don't actually want to appear to be awkward or difficult. So I would say on a film set that you'll get people that say I'm allergic to this, or I'm intolerant, I don't like this,
Hmm.
but actually you don't have them generally running rings around you. That'll
Right.
be something that you can sort out before. I think probably my daughter is more difficult with food than
she's
some of
she's
the crew,
she's pickier, is
actually.
she? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think possibly I do remember on one show we had a sound technician that was like, I eat like a child and I can't have anything touching. And I think that was probably about the strangest thing, but it isn't the first time that I've heard things like that before. So I think every day we had to have sausage, beans, and chips for him,
But they couldn't touch each other.
not touching each other, kind of. So in the end, I think we got those boxes where it was all separate. Like, there you go, sausage, beans, and chips.
Yeah. And
So yeah.
so what kind of other shows or films have you been involved in? I mean, you've done some big things. It's really
Um,
interesting.
we did. I mean, we've been involved um, with Love Island, the UK show, and some of the other international shows, which has been a huge hit. I remember doing the first one of Love Island, and I just remember thinking I didn't even understand it, and just watching the whole thing unfold was quite an experience. Also, um, we did Anton Deck Saturday Night Takeaway live from a cruise ship once in Barcelona.
Really? Right.
Right, yeah, that was quite a bit. That was an experience. I'm trying to think of some other. Um, we did. We've done costume dramas I quite enjoy, or when you've got futuristic shows. But actually, one of the ones that I really enjoyed doing was we did a Spanish show set in Malaga. Malaga, Marbella, Torremolinos, Fuengirola, and that was
Right.
great to be involved in that and kind of feel that you were doing stuff in your local area.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
so
Yeah,
yeah, I'm trying to think.
Malaga's quite a popular location now, isn't it, for
Yes,
filming? Yeah,
yes,
because
it is. It is.
it's.
There's a lot going on in Malaga.
I think Malaga's probably one of the oldest cities in the world because it goes back to the times of the Phoenicians and before, and it's a very historical city, isn't it?
It is, and I think as well the thing about about Malaga is that, well, a, it's got a very, very friendly film office who will always help and make it easy to facilitate filming. It's got great scenery. It could almost be anywhere in the world. Got
Yeah,
great weather, lots of sunshine. I've had Malaga turned into 1940s UK. We've seen Malaga turned into kind of biblical scenery. We've had
really, yeah,
modern buildings, all kinds of different things. The funniest one we did recently was Palacio Congresos turned into Dubai Airport. That was
right,
funny,
yeah.
with extras walking around dressed as Arabs.
Yeah, the for people again who are listening, the Palacio de Congresos is really kind of like municipal conference centers, aren't they?
Yes.
And they're usually pretty sort of boring type buildings, you know. They're
Yeah,
just
exactly. And we were trying to work it out because we saw all these extras and we were thinking, what's it supposed to be? And they said Dubai Airport. And we were like, okay, we get it. And actually looking at the glass and the metal, we were like, yeah, okay, we get it now. We get it.
right. Yeah, yeah. So I have to be honest and say I don't even know what Love Island is because I haven't watched TV for 20 years. But whereabout is that based? Is that in Mallorca?
It's in Mallorca.
It's
Yeah.
in
That's where the
Mallorca.
UK show is based in Mallorca. It's a huge hit. It's one of the biggest shows on TV. And I actually, with when we do work, it's such a busy show for us that we don't actually really watch it. We don't meet the contribs. I can't really say a lot about it because actually we're kind of tucked away in the background more than anything else.
Right, okay. So you've got teams out in a couple of places at the moment
Yeah,
then
yeah.
Noelia, and is that working out okay for you?
Yes, obviously we're dealing now with the strikes, with the cooking oil scenarios, making sure we've got enough food. I think, you know, the supermarkets are suffering terribly, and so are the suppliers now with this lorry driver strike that's going on here. So, yeah, we're just trying to do as much forward planning as possible to make sure we can keep feeding people.
Right, yeah. And this must be a complicated time in many ways because
Yeah,
you know, I know just from a domestic point of view, every time you go into the supermarket, it costs you an extra tenner at the checkout.
yeah, yeah,
And
it is.
you know, I guess for guys like you, can you build that into you know, when you do a quote for a piece of work,
Yeah.
do you just have to absorb these extra costs, or is there something that you can build in to say that, you know, it's going to cost extra? Because you obviously can't do it at a loss.
Yeah, I mean, what we are having to do at the moment is just be, because a lot of our budgets have already been set, so we're just having
Sure.
to be creative. You know, the chefs at the end of the day need to. I always say to new chefs coming into this, I'm like, you need to have a repertoire and you need to be able to really make something out of the ingredients that you have.
Right.
And so we're just working now with what we've got, making changes to the menus to keep things on an even keel. There's a lot of focus now anyway on sustainability and plant-based eating, and so we're looking towards that kind of feel now with our menus. Where it's going to go, I don't know. We just have to keep looking at our costs and being adaptable.
Yeah, but
And
presumably, other companies, your competitors, are all facing the same challenges anyway.
everyone,
So,
exactly, everyone has exactly the same issues. Generally, you know, when you're working with private individuals, you'll get people saying, I want the beef, I want this fish, I want these cheeses, I want these dishes. And so that's where you have to say, well, look, that costs that at the moment. And that, whereas, you know, we're given a budget and an idea and we have to kind of make it work. And that's part of the skill, really, is being able to make it. To make it delicious, to make it appealing, to make it on budget, to make it all
yeah.
these things.
Yeah, but I think, you know, well, I guess that what you're experiencing is being experienced in similar ways by anyone at the moment who's in the catering industry.
Yeah, it
The
is.
increased costs in fuel, whether it's
Yeah,
in your case for driving to places, or the
yeah,
increased costs of butane if you're using that for
yeah,
cooking, and the increased costs of food. You know, I guess this must be hitting everybody.
yeah,
Um,
it is. It is. And yeah, we just have to keep an eye on. I mean, there are certain things anyway that go up and down, like the gold standard. And a lot of my job is I'll sit there and Mark in particular, Mark knows the price of everything. So
right.
that, oh, that's really expensive at the minute, or that's really good value at the moment. So part of the job, a lot of people think that, you know, we're just making food, but actually a lot of the job is making sure that we've got the supply chain in place wherever we are, and we know the prices and we know what's good value, what isn't good value. Sometimes I see certain prices and I'm like, that's ridiculously cheap. It's got to be You know, it's got to be, that minced beef can't be that price. It's got to be full of fat, or it's got to be mixed with something. You know, I'd
Yeah,
say pretty much certainly across Europe, there is this kind of like base rate for these commodities, and you kind of know there's some fluctuation, and then you know I mean, definitely things like sunflower oil at the moment. I mean, it's so expensive, it's ridiculous. Luckily, our business, you know, if you've got a business that relies on frying food, then yeah, this isn't a good time. You know, that's when
yeah.
it's difficult. But we're lucky that we have the flexibility in our business to be able to swap things out and change them.
Yeah, I mean, sunflower oil is almost as expensive as olive oil at the moment, isn't it?
Absolutely, it really is. And the issue is that frying in olive oil doesn't reach the same temperature that
Right, yeah,
sunflower oil does. That's the issue. It's
right.
not, oh, well, I use olive oil anyway. You know, if you're going to deep fry fish,
Yeah,
you can't do it in olive
you don't
oil.
want to be doing it in olive oil now.
Yeah,
Noelia,
exactly.
we are coming towards the end of the show. It goes in very quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah, very quickly.
And I just want to say to you, thank you so much for coming in and
Thank
sharing
you.
some of your experiences with us. I've enjoyed listening to your stories, and you know, we will keep in touch. I'll come round again.
Yeah,
I know that
okay.
you're doing all of your renovations in your new sort of warehouse at the
Yeah,
moment. It's going to be great to see it when it's all finished. Can I just say that we wish you all the very best,
thank you, Bill.
and you know, let's hope that life is turning back to something that we resemble, or that we can see or reflect on as normal, and you know, that things start to really take off for you guys again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me. And
Thanks,
for
Bill.
those of you who have been listening in, thank you for listening in. I would wish you a very good weekend from the Costa del Sol. And we are going to go out in just about 10 seconds with Bruno Mars and Just the Way You Are. Thank you, Noel.
Thank you.